Hi, everyone, and welcome so much to the Fall Book Fest of 2021. And please welcome our very special guest, Mark Kennedy Shriver. Mark, thanks so much for being here.
Thanks so much for having me, Deborah. It's great to be with you. Thank you.
There is so much for us to talk about. But first, let's start with your latest book, your third book, 10 Hidden Heroes. This is a fantastic book, and I'm kind of going to have you explain what this book is about and what you're trying to sort of let people know through this book. Would you?
Sure, I'm happy to. And again, thanks so much for having me. 10 Hidden Heroes really started, the idea came about at the beginning of the pandemic. And, the books that I've written have tried to focus on really a search for goodness, how people have joy in their life, how they do good things day in and day out. And I think, in American culture, we spend so much time focused on greatness, on being rich or famous or powerful. And I think what's really important is goodness, which is really the doing the right thing when no one's looking, doing the right thing day in and day out, and celebrating that, lifting it up. And the book, 10 Hidden Heroes, it's a counting book. It's like a Where's Waldo book for little kids, but instead of finding Waldo amongst, 100 people or 200 people, it's finding the good people on page 10 and then 9 and then 8 and 7 right down to 1. And it's celebrating not, again, the rich and powerful or the famous, but, the custodian at the hospital. It's the nurses, the doctors, but it's also the custodian, because the hospital wouldn't be clean. It wouldn't be functioning if the custodian wasn't doing his or her job. It's about celebrating the next door neighbor who shovels the snow off the walkway of an elderly person in the neighborhood. It's these small acts of kindness that I think we as a country don't celebrate. And that's what 10 Hidden Heroes is about. So it's, teaching little kids that, but also I hope asking or forcing the conversation between little kids and their parents, their uncles, their aunts, their grandparents about what really is important, about who really is a hero. So Deborah, there is one little thing on there where there are two Special Olympic athletes. And, my mom, Eunice Kennedy Shriver, started Special Olympics, and I put two athletes in there, arm in arm, one from Israel and one from the United Arab Emirates. And I saw that happen when I was over in Abu Dhabi at the International Special Olympic Games. And at that point in time, Israel was not recognized by the United Arab Emirates. Yet there were two athletes, together celebrating competition, striving to do their best. Arm in arm, United Arab Emirates and Israel. And I think, I hope little kids realize that Special Olympic athletes can lead us and teach us, and they can be heroes, even though they have a developmental disability. What does that really mean? And are they really heroes? So it's a book with a message, but also supposed to be filled with a lot of fun and a lot of adventure, trying to find heroes all across the pages. And the illustrator did a great job, Laura Watson. I think they're fun and exciting. So that's what the book is about. Sorry, I went too long, Deborah.
No, you're fine. You're absolutely perfect. Actually, it makes my job easier, right? No, but you talked about fun. You talked about also reading it with an adult. I think that's important because so many of us as adults have lost sort of that fun. And sometimes, we get jaded as we get older and we don't see the little hidden heroes and little saints that are right next door, that are right across the street. And we're driving by very often in a rush. And if we could just take a moment to pause. And as we read this, as I read this as an adult, I thought, oh yeah, that really had an impact on me. This is not just a book for kids, but it's a book for all of us. But what I found interesting was, this is your third book. You wrote about your dad, a good man, and you wrote about Pope Francis. That book is called Pilgrimage. That's a fantastic book for anyone looking for something to read. I know you didn't exactly write these last year, those two, but by picking those two books up recently, and then this third book, I learned a lot about you and how this has sort of been a part of your life since you were younger. You mentioned mom. Do you mind if we dial it back a little bit and talk about dad and the impact that dad had on you? And of course, mom as well, if you would.
Yeah, I mean, I was blessed with two wonderful parents, right? And, they were devout in their beliefs. They had a strong relationship with God. They're both Catholic, as am I, my wife and kids. But they didn't, evangelize and say, if you're not Catholic, we're not talking to you. They were, and realized that God is in all things. There's a famous saint in the Catholic tradition, Ignatius of Loyola, who started the Jesuits, who talks about God in all things. And I think my folks realized that God is in this conversation between you and me right now, and is in nature, is in relationships, that God is everywhere. And my folks, I think, realized that. They went to mass every day. They realized they were not God. And that's a big difference. I mean, there are a lot of people who think they are godlike, right, Deborah? And my folks realized they needed help. They needed each other, but they needed everyone working together. And I think they thought every day was a chance to make the world a little bit better. Not, huge, ginormous, as my kids say, differences, but every day you can make the world a little bit better. And every interaction you have, you can see God in that interaction. And I learned that from them. They did it with a lot of joy. I don't think my father or mother thought they were going to work any day, much less every day, because I think they thought that was a day to go out and try to do a little bit better in the world. So they had a lot of energy. They had a lot of joy. They got fired up every morning. And it was, they were great role models. They are great role models. My dad used to, in this book I wrote on him called A Good Man, he would write us letters, us, the children, almost every day. Sometimes It would be all five of us. Sometimes it would be a handwritten note. I got them every day when I was in college. My friends thought my father was crazy because I'd come back from the P.O. box every day with, one or two letters. And I kept on most of them, went back and read them and tried to figure out. A good man is really a search to figure out how this guy lived with such joy, because I realized I need more of that in my life as I strive every day to be a better father, a better husband, a better friend, a better colleague, and to try to be good day in and day out. So that's, my father, when he died, Deborah, everyone said, not everyone, but the newspapers and television said he was a great man. He started the Peace Corps under President Kennedy, started the war on poverty under President Johnson, created Head Start and legal services for the poor, Job Corps, Vista. My mom started Special Olympics. When she died, she was a great person. But what really impressed me was not, the fact that they did all these things, but that they treated, their waitress at their favorite restaurant the same as they treated, a senator or a governor or a president of the United States, or you or me. We were all, blessed by God and loved by God, and they treated everyone the same. And how do you do that day in and day out? How do you, be a saint, as you said, who lives next door, which is what Pope Francis talks about a lot, that there are these hidden saints who live next door. And that's what 10 Hidden Heroes is a celebration of. It's the people that do goodness day in and day out who we don't celebrate as a country. So I had two great role models, and I still have two great role models because I learn from them still every day. How they acted when our kids got in trouble. I try to think about when I got in trouble. How did my mom and dad deal with me? When our kids do well, how did they deal with us when we did well? How did they deal with somebody they were struggling with at work, or some friend of theirs who disappointed them? How did they interact with those people as a role model for me still today? So I'm still learning from them.
That's really impressive that they would do that and work together as a team. And clearly it was their faith that guided them, but also just who they both were as people. I love there's a part in the book, A Good Man. I know we're here mostly to talk about hidden heroes, but to me, they all sort of work together because it tells a story of who you are and why you wrote 10 Hidden Heroes. But I love the story when you were together with the Kennedy clan and you were kids and everyone was playing football on the lawn. And someone cried. I don't remember if it was you or one of your cousins.
No, it was my brother. It was my brother, Bobby. Bobby Shriver cried. And
tell us that.
Well, you got, yelled at. Somebody said, Kennedys don't cry. And my dad, I was very young when this happened, so it's urban legend. And my father said, that's okay. He can cry. He's a Shriver. And, my mom was a Kennedy, so I guess I'm a Kennedy, obviously. I'm proud of being a Kennedy. I'm also proud, obviously, of the Shrivers. And I think the point of the story is, we're all human beings. We all cry. And my father, I think, understood that innately, that it's important to cry. It's important to smile and be joyful. It's important to have all of these human emotions. And that it's okay that you don't have to bottle those up. And I think, when that supposedly happened in the late 60s, early 70s, whenever it was, I think he understood that. And, the other story that I'll just tell quickly, Deborah, that I have in A Good Man, my brother Bobby, the same guy, is 10 years older than me. So he got busted when he was like 16 for smoking pot. And it was on the cover of every newspaper in the country because Uncle Bobby Kennedy had just died. And my father, this is 1970, was thinking of running for governor of Maryland. My uncle Teddy Kennedy was, thinking of running for president in 72. So when Bobby Shriver Jr. and Bobby Kennedy Jr. got busted for smoking pot in 1970 together, it was all over the place. And my father came back, he was traveling, and my brother Bobby was told to walk down the hallway to go see Dad. He said, it's a really long walk down that hallway when you're going to get, yelled at. And my father said, hey, look, Bobby, you got to take responsibility for this. Don't listen to what everybody says. You're a good kid. I love you. Take responsibility and let's move forward. And, I was in politics. I was in elected office in Maryland. And I think if I were running for governor and our 16-year-old daughter got busted for smoking pot, 40 years ago, there'd been more yelling in the house than that. And I think, my father, again, intuitively understood that kid, Bobby, my brother, at 16, under the microscope all across the country and the world, really, needed love and support. He made a mistake. We all make mistakes. He loved him. He needed to know that he loved him. And Bobby said it was a turning point in his life because he knew he had that, father behind him and it was going to be a rock. And, as I said, I think I would have done a lot more yelling. Dad didn't. And it's a good lesson for all of us. And I've talked to a lot of parents who've heard that story and they're like, wow, my kid gets in trouble. I've tried to be calmer and, showed that I love them, even though they made a mistake, because we all make mistakes, right, Deborah? I mean, so how you deal with your kid in those moments of crisis for the kid has a big impact on the kid. And it's been something I've tried to weave into my life. I don't do it very well. I wrote that book called A Good Man. And after it was over, my daughter, who was then, 16, Molly, said to me, I'm going to write a book about you. And I said, oh, Molly, that's so sweet. What are you going to call it? And she said, an okay dad.
I love that.
So I'm trying, but I'm not in the good category yet. I'm trying though.
I'm going to stick with A Good Man for another moment, if you don't mind. Right. I also felt like this book, A Good Man, was a journey for you, particularly, of course, after Dad passed or your parents passed, because we all know, for those of us who've lost parents, how difficult that is. And often when they're not there, for us to go and ask a question to anymore, right? Yes. It's all of a sudden we think back to the many moments where they taught us lessons and all that. What was that like for you? How cathartic was it for you to write this book?
I mean, my mom had died. My uncle, who I was close to, Senator Ted Kennedy, died 2 weeks after my mother. A guy who had worked for my mom and dad had actually died 2 weeks before my mom. So when Richard Ragsdale, who's in the book, on my dad, my mom 2 weeks later, Uncle Teddy 2 weeks later, literally, 14 months later, my dad. So I was like, oh my gosh. And I said to my brother, because I gave one of the eulogies at Dad's funeral, what do I do now? And he said, why don't you just, write some more stories like the ones you told at the funeral? So I started writing, and then somebody read it, these stories, and said, wow, this is a pretty good book. And that's what turned into A Good Man. So, at times I was writing the stories, I was in the basement, laughing my head off. At other times I was crying. It's like, God, I can't believe it. This guy's gone. My mother's gone. But, having the letters that he wrote, and rereading those, seeing some of them in his own handwriting was powerful. And I think that is very helpful to me on a personal basis. And I think, again, I continue to learn from him, even though he is not physically here. He is with me in spirit, and his example and my mom's example too continue to teach and inform me. Some people have said to me, wow, and I, understand your dad wrote you all these notes. I've started writing my kids' notes and slipping them under their doors or mailing it to them. And it's not a note like, I heart you. Yeah. Like a text. When it's a handwritten note, it sticks around. I mean, the kid's got to throw it away. I threw away a couple of my notes from my dad. But, you got to shows the kid that when you put it in handwriting, you put it in an envelope, you put a stamp on it, you mail it. It's more of an effort than I heart you, which, it's good to send to your kid. I mean, I send them to our kids, but I think a handwritten note, which we don't seem to have time for anymore. My dad and mom were pretty busy. They seem to have found time for writing a note. So it's an example, I hope, for all of us.
Yeah. I honestly, when I read that he did that to each one of you kids, I thought, yeah, where did he get the time? Because yeah, you're right. He was a busy man, but boy, it just shows the priorities that your family had. Let's talk about your family. Let's talk about your mom's side a little bit. For those of us who grew up right with the Kennedy name, I know you've been asked this before, but did you feel any sort of pressure growing up under a Kennedy spotlight, or not really, because your mom and dad worked together as a unit to raise you in a certain way, if you would?
I think, my mom and dad did work closely together. I'm very close and still, really close to a ton of my cousins on the Kennedy side. So I really like them, love them. Nobody's perfect. I'm not perfect. We get along. We have our fights. It's it's a fantastic relationship. Do I feel pressure? I think so, but we had such huge advantages. The mom and dad that were there, a mom and dad who, cared about us and were attuned to what was going on, that were active, great role models. I'd never experienced, my folks coming home and saying, neither one of them saying, you got to do this or you got to do that. You got to run for office. But, when you see your parents up and at it every day, I mean, I don't think my mom or dad ever took a sick day. We're in just outside of DC. We rooted for the Orioles. Cal Ripken going to work every day, set the world, the major league record. My father never missed work. I mean, he wasn't playing Major League Baseball, but he, went to work when he was not feeling great. Same with my mom. So you have that example, which, you got to get up and go. You got to work. You got to. It didn't matter whether, Maria went into media. My sister Maria's in media, brother runs Special Olympics. Another brother I've done a ton of work with on the debt Africa issue, AIDS issues. Brother Anthony runs Best Buddies. People have done different things, but there was definitely a message to get up and you got to move and you got to do something. Didn't matter what you did, but you got to do it. And they were pretty good examples. I'm sorry, Deborah, I cut you off.
No, it's fine. Believe me, you're way more interesting than I could ever be. So, and hearing about your family. I once read that mom drove around in an older station wagon. Is that true?
She drove around on, yeah. I mean, she wasn't really, there was a station wagon, a country Squire. We drove around in that thing before, SUVs were around. Yeah. Those old wagon, long bedded cars. Yes. She drove around in that. I mean, my mom didn't really focus on cars or, fancy outfits or clothes. She, had Special Olympics athletes in the backyard, swimming, doing sports, working in our house. She was running Special Olympic athletic activities when she was ambassador. My dad was ambassador to France in the 60s, late 60s. I mean, imagine having kids with developmental differences, who were called different things back then in the United States Embassy, running around in the backyard through tires and, jungle gym sets, doing physical activity in Paris in the late 60s as a woman. Pretty amazing. I mean, that's breaking stereotypes. So, how did she do that? How did she have the energy? How did, my father agree to allow her to do that? And I use those words on purpose because, men were in charge in the late 60s in Europe, especially in France. And, he was the ambassador, but here was a woman, his wife, who's doing kind of things that were unheard of. And they did that together. But I think a lot of people thought, how can he allow her to do that? This is a woman doing crazy things with people who should be in an institution. They didn't care. People with developmental disabilities are, children of God, whether they're children or adults, they're, children of God. And my mother, had a sister with a developmental disability. Boom. She was a member of the family. Let's go. Put them in the house, put them in the embassy. And that was, breaking stereotypes, shattering them, really. I love it. Good stuff.
Well, it's actually great stuff, but how do you hold yourself up like that when days it's hard, because we all have those days. And I have to tell you, I wake up most days feeling so optimistic and fortunate and blessed just to actually still be on the planet, right? But then very often as stuff happens, something on the freeway or this happens or something at work, my mood will start to slide. And then I'll start
Right.
to maybe, some people call it meditation, some people call it a prayer. Then I'll take a moment and say a prayer, and then it'll lift me back up again. What lifts you up when you're starting to slide? I mean, what do you do?
Oh, my cup of coffee. I
Right.
think,
Didn't we both yeah. Okay.
yeah, there you go. There you go, Deborah. I mean, all kidding aside, I mean, I think there is the centering process, whether you call it meditation or prayer. I mean, for my folks, they were going to mass every day. They had that 25 minutes every day. To me, try to do that every day. Doesn't work every day. I feel more centered and more focused when I do get that chance to either go to mass or get some quiet time here in the house. There's a famous line, I can't remember who it's from, that it says, should pray every day for 30 minutes. And when you're really busy, pray for 60. Because, when you're really busy, you need more time to get focused. And I struggle with that, as I think most people do. So, you asked, how do you live up to it? I think, I'm not my mother and father. They lived in a different time with different resources and different experiences. So I think you got to get over that idea of competing or comparing yourself to your parents or to your siblings or to your next door neighbor, and do the best you can with what God has given you. I talked to my dad once. He was in the middle of Alzheimer's, Deborah, and we got stuck at a traffic light, and he was, in and out of knowing who I was. And I turned to him, I said, Dad, I don't know why I did it, but I said, Dad, you're losing your mind. How does it make you feel?
Wow.
And he turned to me without missing a beat, and he said, I'm doing the best I can with what God's given me. And I was like, oh my God, I'm doing the best I can with what God has given me. And I think, that's what he did his whole life. And that's a pretty good example for the rest of us. God's given me a certain set of skills and gifts, which are not the same as you, which is not the same as my sister or the guy who lives next door to me. So you got to do the best you can with what God's given you and celebrate, as you said, that every day, because it's a huge gift to be alive. It's a huge gift to have this conversation. And I'm grateful that people are listening or watching. So you do the best you can. And, if 10 Hidden Heroes sells, 10 books, great. If it sells 100,000, great. We're trying to get the message out about goodness and spread good news and lift up people, everyday heroes. And that's what the book is about. And that's what the book I wrote on Dad, A Good Man, and the one I wrote on Pope Francis, Pilgrimage, it's that search. It's that journey that we're all on.
Thank you for that wonderful segue, Mark. It's almost like we planned it. If we could just get a couple of minutes before we go back to 10 Hidden Heroes about Pilgrimage. Tell us a little bit about the synopsis and how you came about to writing that book. That's also another extraordinary read, people.
Well, thank you. It's a journey, as the book on my dad is a journey to, figure out how to be more joy filled in my life, how to be a better, human being, to be good. Not great necessarily, but good, which is really the goal for me anyways. And, I was asked to do a similar journey to figure out, what made Pope Francis tick, what makes him, I think a good person. Obviously he's the Pope, and but he's a sinner and he's had problems, and, the talking to his friends and people that don't like him in Argentina and in Italy reveals who he is and what the ups and downs he went through. He almost died as a kid, becomes a priest, becomes a very powerful Jesuit, which is an order of Catholic priests, and then, gets exiled essentially. So he has a huge rise at a young age, a huge dramatic fall. And then he came back as a different person. So it's a up and down and back up. But I think the failure in his life, a series of tough blows that, he brought upon himself to a large degree, helped make him who he is today. Very understanding, forgiving, merciful person. And the pilgrimage is a journey to figure out who he is, and try to incorporate some of his joy and his skills in relationship with God into my own life. And again, I'm still on that journey. That's why it's called pilgrimage, because we're all pilgrims here on earth for 60, 70, 80, 90 years of life. And it's trying to learn from other people how to do it a little bit better.
It's an extraordinary book with a lot of research and detail into his early life, which is what I loved about it as well. And I don't want to give anything away because I really would love people to pick up this book too. But your journey also into meeting him. That's all I want to say, people. So if you want to pick it up, you'll figure out, did he meet the Pope or not? That's all I can say. But you kept going. You kept writing this book.
Yes.
So I loved your own pilgrimage into this one as well. So
thank you.
Yeah.
You're leaving a teaser there. I usually let the cat out of the bag at the end of the story, but yeah, you're right. It was a quest not only to meet him, but to understand him more importantly. And part of it, I thought, was to meet him. And the question is, is that necessary? And I guess you got to read the book to figure it out. But it's fun. I mean, it's a fun journey. I hope. It's a narrative of journey filled with stories of who the Pope knows and what they thought of him. And there's a lot to learn from his friends, including one of his good friends who's a trash collector in Buenos Aires, who he invited to his installation mass as Pope and his interaction with that guy. So it's not, a boring story of his interaction with a bunch of priests or nuns.
No, not at all.
I mean, that guy knows. Pope knows, his good friends are, people that live in the very poor sections of Buenos Aires. He stays in touch with them. The guy who picks up trash, literally recycling cardboard and plastic. Sergio Sanchez, I went and met him at the recycling plant, big recycling plant in downtown Buenos Aires. I mean, he's a character. There's a lot to learn from why the Pope's hanging out with a guy who picks up trash.
Yeah, please.
Do a lot of us know the name of the guy who picks up trash in our, neighborhood? Pope does. Why does he know that guy? Why does he hang out? Why is he inviting that guy to his installation mass and meeting with him after he becomes Pope? It's like the first guy he met with is the guy who picks up trash in Buenos Aires. I'm like, what? The guy was the cardinal, the most influential Catholic in all of Argentina, and one of his best friends is a trash collector and a rabbi. Different guy.
That's right. But it's all what's on the inside, right? That is attracting him. It doesn't matter what we're doing, but what we're doing for others is what I got. But it's funny you said that because as a little kid, I used to love to wait out front for our trash collector. He was so nice to me. He was so sweet because back then they got out of the truck, they went and they got your bin, put it in, and they would talk to me. I would love that. So do I know the name of mine now that, yes. And it's because of what happened to me as a child. My trash collector was so nice to me. So I've always made a point of making sure I know who's the guy that's out there or gal collecting my trash. So that's an interesting point. Before we go back.
I mean, let's not skip over that quickly because that's unusual, I think. And it's beautiful. And that guy or gal who's picking up your trash or your recycling is a human being. And maybe.
Go ahead.
Yeah. It's a human being, right? And maybe can't do a big business deal with you and make you a lot of money, but, as a human being, and you treat that person the same as you treat, your business partner or, the person who owns that big company over there who might put you on a retainer or.
There's no doubt. And we all end up in one way or another connecting with one another, working with one another. I did not come from a family of financial means, but I know with my family, education was everything. They wanted to make sure I was the first one to go to school. And they wanted to make sure that whatever it was that I wanted to do, even though they wanted me to be a bookkeeper, that I followed my dreams. So again, whether you're the trash collector, somebody who's writing a book, I have to ask you a couple more questions because I do know that you are under a time thing. But did you write every word in this? It's so well done. Or did you have a team of people helping you? These are beautifully written books, every one of them.
Thank you. I wrote them. I had a lot of help. I'm not a professional writer, right, Deborah? So I'm, when I write, they're mostly stories and trying to find the common theme through stories of my dad's life, my interaction with him and his friends, the same with the Pope. And I was blessed with wonderful editors who would say, on page 18, you said this, on page 52, you said that. And I'm like, wow, I didn't even know I did that. And that's a theme that you should emphasize on page 92 in this one sentence here. What do you think of that? And I'm like, yeah, that makes complete sense. And it's actually part of the story, but I didn't see that theme. Some beautiful editors and friends that took a look at the manuscript and suggested edits. I mean, look, there's nothing, there's my father always believed, and I believe it too, that, nobody does anything by themselves. So anybody who tells you, let me put it for myself. If I told you I wrote these things all by myself, I'd be lying to you. I got help. I have editors who helping me out, friends, the guy who traveled with me, who translated, because I don't speak Spanish, who translated all the conversations I had in Argentina, Spanish into English. I had a person transcribe all the interviews because I taped them and she typed them all out so I could actually read what they said and then put that into the book on Pope Francis. I had so much help. I'm beyond blessed. I'm beyond blessed.
But
really
it is clearly your voice and your journey in here. And that's why I was unable to put these books down. It really followed an arc the way you wrote this. They're really stunning books. Politically, any further political office in your future?
I don't think so. I mean, I guess you never say never, but I have no interest in that. I mean, I interact now with Save the Children. I used to run until a couple of months ago, all their U.S. programs. I now do a lot of their strategy work, but I interact with governors all around the country trying to increase the amount of money on both the state and federal level that goes to early childhood education. Those first 5 years of life where we don't spend enough money and time. As our kids, our brain growth is happening. 90% of brain growth happens in the first 5 years of life, Deborah. But as a society, we don't invest until kids get into pre-kindergarten or kindergarten, really. Right. So we've just lost this huge opportunity. So I'm in the public arena pushing for more investment in early education. I'm hoping you see that happening in some states across the country. We've got a lot more to do to keep pace with China and India and other developed countries. So I get enough of my interaction with the public arena right now. I love interacting with my wife and kids and spend some time with them. And the good work at Save the Children is a huge bonus because we're doing great work not only in the United States, but around the world. So I love my job. Really do.
You've been married nearly 30 years. As you said, your children, you have 3 children. And I just for a moment just want to get back to the Save the Children Action Network. Because
yes.
Without an educated youth, we will fall behind. So for all those who may be a little more concerned with a bottom dollar, this is a bottom dollar. In other words, by investing in the kids, we really are investing in ourselves and the future of our country's health, right?
Yes, absolutely. And that's what Save the Children Action Network is, a political organization, bipartisan. It's affiliated with Save the Children. But it is trying to mobilize an army of people in the United States. There's about 400,000 people now to put pressure on our elected officials to invest in our children. And it supports both Democrats and Republicans, and it works across the political spectrum. If you want to invest in kids, we're helping you out. We're supporting you. When you look around, Deborah, right, you have big organizations on the environment, on gun control, on gun rights, on Israel, making sure that Israel is taken care of, on pharmaceutical industry, on the environment. What's that for kids? You don't have an NRA for kids. You don't have an AARP for senior citizens. You don't have that for kids. So that's what Save the Children Action Network is. We're trying to mobilize Americans to invest in our children because, as you said, it's the best investment. And when you look at it economically, the Nobel Prize-winning economist James Heckman from the University of Chicago, which is not exactly a liberal institution, said it's the best investment we can make in the public arena, high-quality early childhood education. And you see it in brain scans, kids that are living in poverty, the stimulation in their brains is less than our kids, than your kids, because we're not living in poverty. And those kids, literally, the size of their brain is smaller. So if we invest in high quality education, it will stimulate children, their synapses growth. It will enable them to get better jobs, get a better education, be more productive citizens and employees. So it's better from an economic perspective. It's better from a social justice perspective. It's better from a scientific perspective. So I think it's the best investment we can make as a country. So that's why I'm focused so much on it.
Yeah, it's everything is what it is. So, gets more moms involved. I think maybe that will happen and will draw more attention to it because moms are the biggest champions for their kids, right?
Yep. I mean, I was in elected office and, the state rep, you get 10 or 15 people in a room. That's an army. And if there's 10 or 15, frankly, and most of them are women, it's, I learned that from my mom. And I'm not being sexist. I'm just telling you, as you said, there's a lot of power in any citizen. And there's nothing like a motivated mother when it comes to their children. Had it this morning in our house. We have a sick kid in college. My wife is on it. I'm helping, but wow. So if there are any women, if there are any men out there that care about our kids, go look at Save the Children Action Network website. We're fired up and trying to mobilize people to get in the arena, as Teddy Roosevelt said, and fight for what you believe in. And if you believe kids are our most important resource, whether you're a Democrat or Republican, we got to get in. We got to get in the arena and push, because that's what democracy is. It's a contact sport, and you got to get in there. And the heroes and 10 hidden heroes, Deborah, they're the next door neighbors. That's where the real power is. We just got to get off our fannies and get in the arena.
Do you happen to have any books planned about mom, or even publishing some of those letters from dad, by the way?
Part of the letters are in there in the book on dad called The Good Man. So they're in that book.
Yeah.
My sister, we've talked about doing something about my mom. I don't know. I haven't done that. I probably should. My sister probably would write a better book. I know she would.
We'll have to talk to Maria about.
Yeah, we'll get it on. We'll get on there with Maria.
Doing. Yeah, but look at the work she's doing with Alzheimer's. It's extraordinary.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, she's fantastic. Yeah. She just came out with a new bar that stimulate. And by the way, Alzheimer's disproportionately impacts women with the disease and as a caregiver. So Maria's raised a lot of money on research. She's just come out with a new bar called Mosh, MOSH. Low on sugar, low on sodium. It tastes good, and it's got all the ingredients. She did it with her son, Patrick Schwarzenegger. And it's loaded with ingredients that helps brain growth. And part of it goes to Alzheimer's research. So there are all sorts of ways of getting involved, either with the Shrivers or without us, Deborah.
I love it. With the Shrivers or without us. Let's just sort of end our conversation a little bit, circle back to 10 hidden heroes. What's terrific? At the end, you leave a space for all of us, our kids, ourselves, to fill it in. About ourselves, right? Giving ourselves a hero award. I'll take a hero award, but our kids in particular. Number one, the hero award is you. What will you do? You're sort of empowering kids and parents to help empower their kids. Like, how are you a hero? And I'm not talking about the superheroes in movies. How many of us see those superheroes in movies and we leave going like, oh my God, do I need a cape? I often think about that with my kids as we've left the movies with a superhero. How do you live up to that? That's why this is such an extraordinary book, because the 10 hidden heroes are even not so hidden, but they're among us, right?
Yeah. I mean, we should just end with that. You said it beautifully. Yeah. I mean, that's the idea is, you don't have to start the Peace Corps or the Special Olympics or, be Superman or, Wonder Woman. You can be a hero day in and day out by doing the right thing, by helping your family. If you're a little kid, maybe you help your mother or father do the dishes. Maybe if you have a little, brother or sister and they cut themselves, you help put the Band-Aid on. You, clean up your room. These are all little acts of kindness. I mean, my uncle, Bobby Kennedy said in 1968 about sending these little ripples of hope when he was in South Africa. And these little ripples of hope can knock down the mightiest walls of oppression. And I really believe that, these little ripples of hope, doing your laundry, doing the dishes, helping your little brother and sister, fighting less, being nice to your neighbor if you're an adult, don't gossip as much as you do. All these things are little positive ways that are ripples of hope, helping out at the soup kitchen. If you're a Special Olympics athlete, spreading, joy. And a lot of the folks in this book, are handicapped, so-called handicapped, and they're heroes. We all have different skills, right, Deborah? And you said it beautifully. So the hero is right in the screen. You're looking at it every morning when you look in your mirror. What are you going to do today that's going to make the world a teeny tiny bit better? Imagine if we all did that. If we all, recycled or composted our, fruits and vegetables. These are small little gestures that when they add up, I think make a big difference.
Yeah. And it doesn't have to be big, people. It can be small, because in fact, the small gesture is in fact a big gesture. People need to know that. So, gosh,
Right.
Mark, go ahead, please.
You're right, Deborah. You're right. And your background looks good. I got the Celtics on the back of my kid's room where I was promoted about 8 months ago from the basement.
Very nice.
It's been great talking to you, Deborah. You're so nice to have read the books and to see the theme that, the books I've written. We're coming out with another one called, Pairs, where we talk about, a children's book about how pairs working together can also make a huge difference. And it's natural. It's a multiplication book as compared to a counting book. 10 Hidden Heroes is a counting book. So it's really exciting and fun stuff. And I'm so grateful that you read all those books. I mean, you may be the only person other than my wife that's read them all. But I appreciate your time, really. Thank you.
Yeah, no, and I appreciate your time. When will Pairs be coming out?
Next year, sometime in 2022, September or something like that. We got a while to go. 10 Hidden Heroes is still out there. It's, for sale, and it's doing really well. And I'm so excited when people tell me they have great conversations with their kids, their grandchildren about, what makes a hero. How can the little actor in the Wizard of Oz, Dorothy, is played by someone who is got a physical disability? How can that person be a hero? Bam. Love that. We all have different skills and different talents. And that I love it when people have to think about that with little kids. It's great.
Holidays are coming up. Thanksgiving, what better time? And of course, the Christmas, Hanukkah, all sorts of holidays in the next few months. Great book to pick up for our kids, for our family. 10 Hidden Heroes by Mark Kennedy Shriver. Mark, it's been wonderful to have you on our book fest. I appreciate your taking the time. We'll have you back. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And I didn't introduce myself, everybody. My name is Deborah Zara Kobylt. So I appreciate you all joining us. And any parting words, Mark?
No, I think we've said it all. It's
we said it all.
You've said it all, and beautifully. Yeah. So thank you so much for having me. Have a terrific day.
And thanks everybody for tuning in to the Fall Book Fest 2021. Pick up 10 Hidden Heroes by Mark Kennedy Shriver. I am Deborah Zara Kobylt. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.